It's just like a poodle terrier, but we just like it's like not our dog. We like foster dogs so they can be adopted. Yeah, so we've only had her for like 2 weeks, so she's not quite like someone's got to kind of keep an eye on her at all times.
Alrighty, I think we're finally into this. It's always we just started doing the live stuff, and Paco warned me that the moment I got into doing the live stuff, my life would become that much more complicated. But
Yeah,
seems to be working now, so I think we're up and going. So, yeah, man, what's going on? How is everything? The most general question in the world.
that's pretty good, man. Can't complain. Uh,
Nope,
I could use some better weather, but other than that, doing all
not
right.
you're not doing the SEMA thing like everybody else.
I know it's actually this is the first SEMA I haven't been to since '05.
Really?
So it feels a little strange. I'm a little too sober, you know, compared to everybody out there. But yeah, I was gonna go. I ended up kind of not going last minute. But it's like bittersweet doing some other stuff and getting some other things done. But it is kind of a bummer watching everybody on Instagram having a good time in Vegas.
Yeah. So okay, we know a few things going into SEMA drifting related. Cause actually, you know what? Before we even get into that, who are you? Obviously, if people watching and listening, you're Joey, and you're known from Wrecked Magazine and now Formula Drift. But yeah, give us your like brief synopsis, life story.
Oh man, brief synopsis life story.
Yeah,
So
the Coles notes, the cheater edition.
all right, so we'll start with my like life and drifting, I guess, so to speak. So really, what ended up happening was uh, I was in college. I was posting a ton on Honda Tech, like in the appearance forum for anybody that's like a little old school.
Yeah.
This is like back before MySpace, Facebook, all that. And so I guess it started to get kind of good, and a magazine reached out to me to start doing some photos, which was Import Racer at the time, which is like super old school, long dead magazine.
Yep.
And I did a couple feature shoots, and they were like, "Hey, since you live in Atlanta, do you want to go to this event? It's called Formula Drift." And I actually had like zero idea what it was. It was 2005 Road Atlanta, so second season, kind of the beginning of it. And I went, and I was like, "Yo, this is like way cooler than anything I've done in a car." Like I at the time I had like a '96 Civic hatchback with like a B18 in it that I later put like a K24 K20 in, but it's nothing like dude drifting's obviously like way cooler than drag racing on the street. Like let's be
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I ended up like I just kind of like dove way into drifting like real fast. Like I get super like obsessive about things, and so I ended up driving around with a driver at the time, Andy Sapp, for a lot of 2005. He
Yep.
was running like an E46 BMW. Um, we drove to Sonoma, a couple other events. It was pretty crazy. And I ended up shooting for them. And I gained over a couple years a couple more clients. Like I was shooting for Modified. I did some stuff for Super Street, a lot of the industry magazines back then. And then in the summer of '06, we ended up making a film called Slide America. Me, Andy, and another friend of ours, Jason. We drove like 20 something thousand miles around the country in like a month and a half and basically like documented all these drivers. It's kind of a cool movie if you watch it now because a lot of the people we talked to like became pro or were pro, but this is like back when they were like kids,
Yeah.
Forsberg was like living in a shop in
Okay.
LA, but like running, working on his car, and there's some cool stuff like that. We ended up catching a lot of guys who like ended up really kind of like doing something. So it's kind of cool to watch now. And then after that died down, fired up Racked Magazine, and I don't know the exact year, but I'll say like '09, and then kind of ran that for really up until like last year. That was pretty much like what I did all day.
And now you are writing for FD.
Yeah.
Nice. So we'll get back to SEMA, but you had mentioned that up until last year you're running Rect, and maybe it's probably where a lot of people know you from, is kind of your famous 10 things I learned about, 10 things we found out about at Formula Drift, which I read religiously because it's always interesting to see your take. But what's the word on Rect? That was one of the first questions we got as soon as I posted up you were going to be on. So
I'm not really sure. So it kind of got to the point last year where I started a new business, and it's just taken up way too much of my time. So I wanted to do some stuff, but I didn't want to like, dedicate to rec. So that's kind of why I worked out with the guys from Formula D, so we could like keep the 10 things going. I'd like to try and either grow kind of my writing at Formula D or look for some other places to kind of do some other writing, but I just don't have like the full time capacity to really like run rec the right way. We were in the process actually late last year of selling it all, and it kind of like fell through at the last minute. So I've been kind of like looking for some buyers, but it's like such in the back of my mind right now that I just hasn't gotten done. But um, it's out there. It might come back one day. It's hard to say. If I still own it, there's always a chance that we'll fire it back up. But for the time being, it's just like too much other stuff going on.
yeah, fair enough. So if anybody listening wants Wrecked magazine, it's in what, 1,000 equal payments of $100 or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
100 grand, it's yours. Just 1,000 payments, $100. It's easy.
I like how you put it. It sounds way more reasonable.
It's how you pitch it, man. It's all about how you pitch it. So yeah, that's well, okay. So that's kind of an answer. Just life gets busy when you have side projects. Sometimes you got to focus where the money is and what's fitting your schedule and everything else, right? We've all got our passions, but at the end of the day, you got to have something that pays the bills to make sure the passions can happen.
Yeah, totally.
So, all right, well, fair enough, man. At least you're keeping the spirit of it alive with what you're implementing with FD. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, my love for like drifting definitely hasn't changed. It's funny. Like, I actually think my love and appreciation for the sport has like grown, kind of being able to like step away for a little bit, right, and not just like be in the grind of like wrecked every day. So it's like I kind of can like watch an event a little now and like enjoy it a little bit more.
yeah, that makes sense. You can spectate and you can kind of maybe relate with your fans a little bit better, or with the fans in general. It's one thing to be behind the scenes, but sometimes that overshadows what actually happens at the event. Right? You get caught up in things that maybe the regular spectator wouldn't know, and then you forget about what actually happens on the track.
Yeah, exactly. And it really started to feel like a job a little bit. Like it got to that point where I was just like, oh, I got to go to Formula D again. Like I know some people are like, whatever, asshole, we've never been, but it was
Yeah.
like, from '05 to, we actually had a conversation with this with some of the Formula D staff guys. Like outside of someone that works like directly with a team or like with Formula D, I probably went to the most events in FD history between that time period. And like, I was paying my own way, obviously through the magazine and whatever, but like, I didn't have like a core purpose of being there. Like seen a lot of drifting and like, not even just Formula D, like I've done tons of Pro-Am, tons of grassroots. I've seen drifting on, a couple other continents. So, it's a lot of fun, but it's like, it gets stressful. You're worrying about advertisers and all these things. And so it's a little nice to just kind of be stepped back. I went to Formula D Texas, which was like the first and only event, actually second event I went to this year. Felt like a long time, but it was great, man. I just kind of like sat back, had some beers. I never drank a beer. That was the first time I ever drank a beer at a drift event.
Wow.
I know, which
Man,
sounds crazy, but like
little
that's
bit.
for me though, it was like very work focused. You know what I mean? Like that was like my, drifting event was kind of like an equivalent of like my 9 to 5 or something. So
Yeah.
it was great. I don't know. It was different. It kind of gave me some new perspective, but then like staying connected. I work. I do some on and off PR for a couple of drivers as well, like writing recaps, and then the 10 things from Formula D keeps me pretty like looped into everything.
Yeah, you've got to definitely still spectate and be involved and engaged in the event as a whole. But yeah, like kind of like we said, it's now you're able to take in the finer parts of drifting as opposed to getting caught up in everything else that's going on, the PR, the shaking hands, the meeting people, the introductions, the checking on people that you regularly meet with, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So you get to start making your own ritual at the event again, because I feel like it's very ritualistic going to an FD event.
yeah, kind of. And it's like I don't know, just sitting around with friends or whoever. Like I ended up being next to Pat Gooden for a while, like at FD
Yeah,
Tech, and obviously like he wants to be back out there driving for sure. So he has this
yeah.
whole other like element and perspective watching it. Like you can see where he's like, "Oh, I just wish I was driving." But I know it's just I don't know. It's watching drifting at like a different pace. Like I suggest it to anyone who like feels a little burnt out or like worked on a team and like got over it or like whatever. Just go back and like buy a ticket and watch it as a fan. And it's like I don't know. It's funny how like really entertaining drifting is as like a live event.
To get into it, where the stakes are low but the excitement is as high, if not higher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, it's different. This was the first year that I got to go to events, and I followed the Pro 2 season with the Riley Sexsmith team. So
Oh,
I got
cool.
to see the opposite side of it, where I've been just a spectator watching on the couch and like reading the gossip and what people are tweeting from the pits, and people are reporting on the live chat like, hey, I'm here, and this driver's got his engine out and they're not sure if it's going to get back in. I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy. And then you see him pull up to the line, you're like, holy shit, they did it. And then being in the pits, you realize like that's like half of the teams. like
Yeah.
like the stuff that gets reported on that makes the gossip or the live chat or whatever you want to call it is such a small thing, because every team has 6 or 7 stories at every event where they almost didn't make it, or they almost couldn't do their run, or this happened or that happened at the last second. It's like I really wish there was more media behind the pits and what happens before they even get to the lights.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Formula Drift has like started to take some steps to make that a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
Like talking to the drivers. I mean, the reality is like some teams kind of don't like. It's interesting. Like some teams are real protective of like what's going on in their
Yep.
pit, so it makes it hard for everyone. I think like I even had that struggle like where a lot of times if I was reporting that someone's car had broken or an issue had happened, it was usually coming from like somebody else. Like most teams aren't going to be like, "Oh, hey man, by the way, like our motor's blown and it's
Yeah.
totally fucked and we're trying to get this thing fixed." Or especially once the team's working on a car, like that's like the
They got
focus.
no time. Oh yeah, no time.
Yeah. So a lot of that stuff for me, even like when I was like doing reporting and like doing, I did live Twitter for a couple years, and it's like I was usually relying on like other people to tell me something or get a heads up, and it was like, it was just me. So I'm like trying to watch the event, trying to figure out what's going on in the pits, and
Mm.
you balance all that. I mean, it's hard to nail everything, but I do think that I think there's a lot of room to grow. I actually think it would be really cool if Formula D could figure out a way to do like a behind the scenes show.
And after hours.
Yeah, or something like not to like plug a bunch of other stuff on here, but like I actually just found it's like the Hoonigan like crew show or whatever they started doing. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yeah.
they followed around like James Dean and Pitcher, like the
Yep.
Wardhouse guy, the Irwindale. Like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
agree. And because they did it with a couple of teams this year.
yeah, I guess I had missed it up until Irwindale, and I caught the Irwindale
You
one.
can't get all the media. There's so much.
I know there's a lot of stuff going on these days. So
There's so much, but there's also not enough at the same time. It's really weird.
there's not a lot of good content, right? There's a lot of
Yeah. That's it. That's a good way of putting it. I think what like Rad Dan's doing is great. I don't know if you've
yeah,
watched any of his stuff. It's great.
I have.
He's so what's the word that I'm trying, like unintentionally melodramatic, because he has almost no change in his voice no matter if he's excited or sad. Like it's just his personality is flat. It's not a
Right.
problem. It's just flat. That's who he is. So he'll like every video is the same. Where he's like, "Yeah, I'm super excited to be driving at this event," and then it'll be like his car just like goes into the wall again, and he looks at it, he's like, "Huh? I guess we're gonna spend the next 3 weeks rebuilding that." Like, and it's the same tone the whole way through. I'm like, I don't know what's happening with him, but I can't stop watching. It's great.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, you get like no like cues on like what he's like feeling or leaning.
yeah. But
Um,
he shows the mistakes, he shows the adjustments, and I think that's great. I think there's a lot more transparency. You know, Steph Papadakis showing off the Corolla in a way no one ever thought he even would. Like going to Hoonigan Garage, putting it on a hoist, going through front to back. Very little editing I noticed in that video. So stuff like that's huge for a team to present to everybody. Like, this is what I'm doing. Here's all my stuff. And maybe sometimes Steph gets a bit of a bad rap because of once again rumors. You know, always doing this, always doing that. That's the only way this car could drive like that. So that takes big balls to go up and present a car in that way. Very open. He's also very open in his pits and open in
right.
other ways. But yeah, I think more and more stuff like that showing the adjustments and the technicality behind it, because every chassis is different. I don't know why they're trying to hide their alignments or maybe their tire pressures. Like, I don't know how much of an advantage that's going to give, but that would be nice to see. That's kind of what I'm getting at is I like the techie stuff. I like the nerdy stuff. Tell me how you managed to dial grip in on a bank corner and how that's different than how it would be on a flat track. I would love to know that. That's just me though.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I also think if you look at like where we were to where we are now, I think there's way more publicly available like information, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the general nature. Like, if you're a drift fan, I think it's a great time to be a drift fan. Like, the driving is like next level. I think a lot of the ability for you to like find out, specific details and information. A lot of these drivers have like pretty good social game at this point. Like if you're following your own stuff, and yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that was kind of happening. I think with Rec 2 is just like as I had less time to fill, I just didn't really feel what I was willing and capable of doing. Like I felt like the like need in that hole kind of got a little bit smaller, right? Like
Mm.
obviously there was a big audience there. There's a lot of information still out there, but it's like you probably need to like take some of those properties and like we actually have a decent like YouTube following and some of that, even though we never dedicated to that. But like that's probably what someone needs to do is like take it over and like start making cool video content and producing some of that. But it's just something I didn't have like the time or I guess like interest in.
Yeah. Well, and after doing it for a bit, maybe taking this season off too, you might, whether it's through Rect or through other media outlets, it kind of gives you that spark again to get that interest or to find a new way to approach it. Because I could see it becoming very taxing doing the same thing over and over again. Like, like we said, ritual before, showing up, talking to your usual people, who's doing this, what's going on, getting on Twitter, doing all of that, and then getting to the hotel every night, trying to put your thoughts down. Like it's a ton of work. It's a lot. But maybe just this year will spark something new, whether it's through Rect or through something else.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, who knows what can happen?
Yeah, exactly. So we mentioned SEMA at the beginning. SEMA is a huge time for drifting, especially as drifting has gotten bigger. It's a place where we see new unveils, we hear about new team signing, we get schedules. Where do you want to begin? You want to talk about FD announcements, car announcements, possible car announcements?
Let's talk about. I think FD announcements. I'm probably like a bit more well versed in.
Cool.
Uh, I've only kind of caught stuff from like Facebook. I don't think Formula D's actually posted anything official, right?
Uh,
Not from when I looked earlier today and I hadn't seen anything.
all that
Uh,
I've seen so far is an update on the schedule.
okay.
So everything looks the same other than Pro 2. So
Right.
Pro 2 is going to Orlando, and that's that the only change? I think that's the only change.
Yeah, they're dropping.
And they're dropping Irwindale.
I mean, I don't think they ever. I mean, I saw some people kind of upset about that on like social media, but I mean, the reality is they weren't ever really planning on going to Irwindale with Pro 2 anyway. Initially, if you looked at the schedule last year, they were trying to go to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So Vegas turned into Irwindale, and I think they just couldn't move that event. Irwindale's kind of, I mean, for people that haven't been, it's like it's kind of a shit show. There's not a lot of space.
It's tight. It's very tight.
Yeah, and so like I don't know. To me, adding Pro 2, I don't think it helps anybody. I get obviously some of these drivers really want to like run that track, and it's like very like monumental in the like perspective of like drifting in America and like probably drifting worldwide, right? Like Irwindale, like if you're a drift fan anywhere in the world, I'm sure you know what Irwindale is.
Yeah, yeah, it's synonymous. It's a Pizu.
Yeah,
It's a word that goes with drifting.
Yeah, it's definitely way up there. So I understand like you're a Pro 2 guy. I know that you want to be there. You obviously want to be competing at like the highest level, but you also got to understand it's like something you got to work your way to, right? Like you can't like show up at the biggest event. I get it. To be honest, like I feel real bad for any of these Pro 2 guys that are coming from like the Pacific Northwest, man.
Oh man, that's what that was the main thing for me that I saw was like if you're Pacific Northwest, or I think there's a driver from Vancouver, isn't there?
Yeah, Brody Goebel, right?
Yeah.
He's from up there somewhere. Yeah. Or like Seattle or Vancouver. That's tough. I mean, really, like honestly, like if you can sort out, like Atlanta is kind of the place you want to live to be in Pro 2. It's like 6 hours to Orlando.
Yeah.
I want to say 12 hours to St. Louis, 12 hours to Texas.
Yep.
Then obviously you wouldn't travel for Atlanta, but I'm sure some of these guys will figure it out, man.
That's part of the game.
It's racing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think logistics plays as much of a role in a team as sometimes the car or the driver does.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and when you talk to some of these guys when they go from Pro 2 to Pro, like those logistics and all of that is like a whole nother level, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's a big jump. It's twice the driving.
Yeah. It's twice the driving. You kind of need twice the crew. You're usually doing less practice laps. Like everything's just happening faster and more frequently. So, I mean, that's part of the game with Pro 2. I think it'd be really cool if they would add another Pro 2 round and do kind of like an East Pro 2, West Pro 2, and then they all kind of meet in a final. I think that'd definitely grow like the driver pool, right? Like they could do like I mean, granted, they don't really have a way to do a solid West Coast, but like if they were to do like a Seattle, St. Louis West, like Orlando, Atlanta East, and then like a final in Texas with everyone, like that might be something that'd be cool to think about in the future.
Yeah, St. Louis isn't quite west, but it's close
it's
enough.
Closer than some of these other events. Yeah,
it'd be as close as it would be for like the what do you guys call it? Pacific Northwest? No, not Pacific Northwest. What do you guys call Michigan?
Oh, the Midwest.
Midwest. I don't know how it's Midwest. It's pretty east to me, but yeah, like the Midwest guys to go down to Florida is 20 hours.
Yeah.
So
I guess maybe Michigan isn't quite the mid. I don't know.
I think the Michigan. Yeah, I know what you mean though.
I think the Midwest is technically west of the Mississippi, but in the middle of the country, like between the Rockies.
That would make sense.
I don't know.
Anyways.
Michigan is Michigan, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's considered east in Canada. Ontario is east in Canada.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. We don't need I dropped out of college, so geography lesson on for me is probably not the way to go. But.
Fair enough. But yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. It would potentially double your driver count. It would split guys up. It would allow them all to meet in the end. But yeah, like the top 16 guys or what would you say? Top 16 guys, and they do like a 32 in Texas, or
yeah, I think that'd be really cool. You do like top 16 seed from the first two rounds, and then like a big top 32, qualify in tandem or something in Texas would be sweet.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
that track has space for days, right? So
Oh man, did you see the sign in the media room about like the 11 stadiums that all fit within the footprint of
yeah,
Texas?
I know it's crazy.
It's nuts. I think I posted a photo on our Instagram at some point, but yeah, it's crazy. So well, we'll see what happens. I do feel bad for the West Coast guys. Maybe I'm just saying this because I'm not on the West Coast, but that's the game. That's racing.
Right.
You know what I mean? We still gotta figure out how for us to get to LA, which is a 48-hour drive. So
Dang.
yeah, it is what it is. Is what it is. Sorry, rough peanuts.
Right.
Petition. Meet some people, shake some hands, tell them to go more into the West Coast. Yeah, I haven't seen any other major updates to FD. I heard rumors of some rule changes coming up, but I don't know if they've been officially announced as of yet.
Gotcha. I mean, a cool note is they're adding a Formula Drift Korea series. So
What? Did
yeah.
not know that.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Someone posted like the slide.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, my Korean is still pretty poor, so
Still,
I
as
don't
in
think
you've been working on it, or it's
I
just never been
well
good?
uh my wife's Korean, so I have
Oh, okay.
practice. Yeah, but I don't
Nice.
think they're gonna send me as a Formula Drift translator like I'd
No,
hoped.
that
So,
might be tough.
I know. So Formula Drift Korea Championship is 2019, 4 rounds, all at I mean Americanized. I guess it'd be called Pucheon Raceway. It says it's an
Yeah.
hour north of Seoul. So
Okay.
all 4 rounds at the same track sounds kind of lame, but
Unless
I
they
mean
and if the configuration's big enough and they change it up.
that's true. I don't know anything about this track.
Yeah, neither do I.
I don't, I'm really curious to see how this goes. I'm gonna make like every effort I can to actually go to one.
Yeah.
Um, just because, like, I don't know, I'm kind of curious. I like Korea, so but like, I found some photos of it. Oh,
Right.
it's actually like,
Is
man,
it?
it's a really weird looking track.
Huh.
Um,
How do you spell it? Just for anybody listening.
oh, sure, it's
I'm gonna
the
look it
angle
up.
size would be it's Pocheon.
Push on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up right now while you're talking about it. So at least I've got a reference. You know who will be going, guaranteed, is Ryan Lontaine. That dude's
I know
frequent
that guy.
flyers is insane.
Yeah. So there's some photos of like a like RC track, but then there's also some photos of like drift cars on like a more real looking track. So I'm like watching like a YouTube video like with no audio right now, seeing what's going on. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know, it looks kind of cool. Like it actually just kind of looks like it's definitely got like a Ibisu vibe to it. Like it looks like it's just kind of like in the mountains.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I see what you're getting at there.
So, here's some stats on the track this guy posted in this video. So it's 3.15 kilometers. I don't know what that converts out
Probably
into. And
2.75 or 2.5 mile.
all right, it says decent sized track. It says it's got 19 turns, 10 lefts, 9 rights. The track it varies between 11 and 14 meters wide. That's pretty wide, right?
Meters? Yeah, you're about 3 foot a meter. So you're
Yeah.
33. You're basically a double lane road at 33
Okay.
feet.
I mean, it looks really big. It has a 714-meter back straight.
714 meters. Man, my conversions today.
So what's that,
100
like a half mile?
a meter. Think of a meter as a yard. It's the closest.
Oh, okay. So that's
703 quarter
21.
mile.
Yeah,
Quarter mile back straight.
quarter mile is what, 1,300 feet?
1,320 feet.
Yeah, okay. So quarter mile back straight, and then it says that they can run 4 different configurations. So
There you go.
maybe that's why they're doing 4 rounds. So there's a configuration per round.
They'll probably do first. If I have to guess, FD, it'll probably be first and fourth will be the same, and second and third will be different.
Yeah, I could see that. But I mean, if you pull it up, it's like the title's all in Korean, but it's from this guy, Woram Aaron Yang, and he's got like the title's in Korean, but if you go through, he like basically just has him driving around in the car and he labels every turn. I can shoot you the link too. I don't know if there's a way you can like throw it into like the show notes or something for people.
Yep. Yeah, I can for sure.
Yeah, let's do that then. So that way you've got some. I'll do that right when the thing ends, so I don't close something or crash something. But
Was
it looks neat.
is June Mang Korean?
He is, yeah. Yeah. I
Finally,
mean,
the return of June Mang.
Hang. And you've had Jeff Stone back as a guest.
Yep.
I mean, he's Korean. He was adopted,
Yep.
like raised here, but he's also like of like Korean like parents or whatever. So
Yeah, originally.
yeah, so I mean that might be cool. I mean, get some of those guys back out. Like Stoneback's got some spare cars. He might be able to ship over, find someone to drive. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be sweet. Maybe I'll have to shoot him a message like, Jeff, what's up?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Just immediately include myself without asking.
There you go.
When are we leaving for Korea, buddy?
I heard you need a crew guy. So
Yeah.
it doesn't look like there were any dates,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So,
but
hey, that's big though. You know, we see with
cool.
FIA, like FIA's got a huge spread of countries. I don't remember how many Korean drivers were on there, but I believe there's two.
Yeah, I
there's
think
two.
there was two.
Yeah, but yeah, see what happens. Good for FD. They pulled out of Canada, so but yeah, now they're in. Now they're in Korea.
Yeah, what's your take on that? I mean, it's interesting. That was like one of the events that like I really wanted to go to, and it seems like the attendance and stuff was really strong. Do you think it was just more of like because you guys come from there, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of headaches like when you're bringing like tires and like all that over with customs, right? Like it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, so two things on Formula Drifting Canada. So we had a Formula Drift Canada.
Right, series.
Yeah,
Wow.
it should have it should come back in a year or two because I just don't think Canada was ready.
Gotcha.
It just wasn't ready. The drivers weren't there. There's a trickle down from the US to Canada of like 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
So not in all cases, but in a lot of like in stuff like that, it just takes a little bit longer because like all of Canada is in California. Like everybody in California is more than I think in all of Canada, and we're 40% or 30% bigger than the U.S. So that's kind of the tough part is that the culture takes longer to filter through, and so I think it if it comes back in 2 years, it'll do a lot better. FD coming out, not going to Quebec, from my understanding, it had a lot to do with logistics, and this is something that's my theory. Crossing the border, if you have a criminal record, is incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Right. And a lot of the teams probably had crew members and staff members that may have had a criminal record. And you can take guesses at which teams those might be, but either way, you may be losing one or two staff members, making it that much more difficult.
But when you say like criminal record, even like just for people that don't know, like technically you can't even go into Canada if you've had like a DUI, right?
Yeah,
like,
if you had a DUI, you can't come in. And now, what's kind of funny on the opposite side of things, we're getting off drifting a bit. If you admit to smoking weed before it became legal in Canada, which only happened a couple of weeks ago, you can't get into the U.S. now.
Really?
Yeah, it sucks. So you got to know that before you go. So just a little PSA to all of my Canadian brothers out there. If they ask you if you smoked weed before it was legal, you say no.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
The first day it was legal was my first time, I swear.
First time officer, yeah. But yeah, I think that's part of it. Attendance is amazing. Even DMCC, which is our Pro-Am series, although it's not FD accredited Pro-Am series, unfortunately, it has incredible numbers. Like it's very busy. I haven't had a chance to make it out, but watching all the videos, it's packed. And that's that's done in Quebec, same track, I believe.
I actually went to a DMCC event so long ago that Ryan Lontaine was driving at it.
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
But I mean, I think DMCC has changed hands several times, obviously, since back then and whatever. Yeah. But dude, it's a cool time. I think, I like I said, I really wanted to go back, and I just kind of missed the boat on that. But like, I don't know, Canadian drifting definitely has like a really cool vibe. Like, it's, I think a lot of those dudes like aren't really worried about going pro because it's like the sponsorship money and stuff. I think isn't as heavy there. No. So like, no. I don't know.
And the dollar doesn't go as far. It's like 78 cents to $1 conversion.
Yeah. So I just think the guys there are much more like laid back and chill. Whereas like, here in the States, like everybody's like friendly, but they're like, yo, like I'm not going to be really friendly with you because I want this sponsorship. There's a lot less of that up there, which I think is kind of cool. Um, and I mean, if you look like, a lot of people don't remember, but like Ryan Turek grew up in New Hampshire, and like when he was like coming up, like he went up to Canada and like competed a lot. I think that helped him a lot.
Yep.
Just driving against a different style of driver. It's putting yourself in a different environment, especially a competitive environment that's like foreign to you. Like obviously it's Canada and New Hampshire. It's not like super foreign, but like
Well, it's enough. It's enough.
Right.
Even people from Michigan, for us, like I'm only 5 hours or so from Detroit. It's a completely different world to me.
Yeah, totally. The rules are different.
Yep.
Like tech's different, the judging's different. So I think that's something to attribute. Like I've kind of told a lot of those guys that I talk to in the Northeast that are like looking to like who really want to become a pro and be serious about it. I'm like, dude, spend some money, deal with a headache, like go up to Canada, compete. Because at the end of the day, like if you can logistically deal with customs, border, bringing your tires back and all, like with Canada, like doing a Formula D event in Texas is gonna be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, I think there's a lot of benefit for some of these American guys up there in Canada if they're willing to like put the work in.
I think Canadian drifting is very similar to Midwest and Eastern drifting, in the way that we are in the Rust Belt or the Salt Belt or whatever you want to call it. Like our cars rust. So
I've never heard the Salt Belt. I like that.
Yeah, because we put salt on the roads. We have to be way more resourceful. There's a lot of rusty hunks of shit that go out on track. But, I built an 88 Thunderbird because what else is rear wheel drive and turbocharged? Like an 88 Turbo Coupe. Like, why not, right? You see a lot of Fox body Mustangs because they're cheap. Tons of E36s, G35s. We're just starting to see more 250Zs come out, although they're not coming out that quick. Same thing. It's just we don't have the people, we don't have the cars and the resources. Everything's spread out, and it takes a couple years. So what was big in the U.S. a couple years ago is starting to filter down into Canada now. So where like, we hear Chelsea DeNofa talk about how big E36s are. As soon as that came out, it was like everybody bought an E36.
That's funny.
Yeah, but like that was a well-known secret in the Pacific Northeast for years before it kind of came out through Chelsea DeNofa, I guess. So,
damn it, Chelsea.
Damn it. Just the price on well, at one point in time I could buy like an E36 running for like $800 and now they've gone up in price again. So
yeah.
240s don't exist really anymore. They don't. They're around, they're still drifting, but like to hear about a buddy going and finding a 240 is like, you're like, where the fuck did you find that? Like, really? Like, does the guy have more? Does he know somebody? So
right. How did he come about this?
Yeah, they weren't popular in Canada, so and any of the ones that were beaten to hell and then they rust out. So you see a lot of SN 195 Mustangs right now. We'll see what else comes out. Anything that was a hardy car that could survive rust.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or special enough that people didn't drive it in the winter.
Right.
So, yeah. But difference-wise, I'm trying to think of like if there's a stylized or anything else that's different. We have a very limited period of time that we can drive, so I find guys will pack a lot of drifting in, but they will run very, very hard. It's a dedication for the 3 to 4 months that we can run.
I can see that.
So it's like guys will go out and I find there's a lot more stories of guys like thrashing to get things done in the pits to finish that day than there is where guys maybe in the southern states more where like they'll have something break. They're like, yeah, I'm done for the day. Like that doesn't happen. It's like, okay, we'll find a way because we get 4 weekends a year that we can go drifting.
Yeah, no,
so,
I can see that.
Yeah.
You just have a lot more urgency. But, when you get into competition, like, especially in the States, like, it's probably helpful, because, I mean, a lot of the time, like, you can't just be like, oh, well, we'll fix this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, you need this fixed in 20 minutes. So some of that even can just condition you for, like, a better competitive.
Or how you build your car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like ensuring things can be easily accessed, ensuring things are modular, that you have specs laid out for your alignment, that you know where you left your alignment before you got into that wreck. Because you might have changed it in practice, but if you didn't mark where you changed it and you get into a wreck, you have no idea where it needs to be, or you have to do you have to do a full alignment, and that's going to eat up a lot of time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think there's tips and tricks like that maybe you get, that might get into their mindset by drifting in a different area. I think the big thing right now is to really bring guys up is talk to old crew chiefs from other motorsports. So Dove, the owner for Riley Sexsmith's team, he's an ex-rally driver, and
Cool.
and Nam, the crew chief, is an ex-rally crew chief, or he might have just been a mechanic. I can't remember the specifics, but I've seen so much in why that team is successful come out of the brains of those two guys. Like, I'm nothing against Riley. He's an amazing driver. But the reason why he is able to drive the way he does and the car perform the way it does is because you've got Dove, who is used to the logistics of traveling as a race team and used to being in the driver's seat and knows the pressures of it and knows how a rally car needs to be built and repaired in a very short period of time. And that car is built like that. Like, I watched them drop the whole rear subframe in like 5 bolts. Like the whole thing just drops out. They could, in theory, have another one built and bolt it back in I would say 20 minutes max.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, they dropped the transmission, rebuilt it, had lunch, and put it back in an hour in Texas or St. Louis.
Dang.
So, but it's that mindset. So I don't know. I think a lot of young pro-am guys find an old racer, find an old, go to the old garages nearby and see if any of those guys are, worked on a stock car team. Or, it doesn't have to be rally, even motorcycles, something like that. And then be like, hey, look, you ran an automotive team before. I know this isn't what you're used to. Karate Kid that shit. Like find an old wise man and pair up with them and be like, look, you may not like drifting, but you like racing. And this is what's next.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that could separate a lot of guys out. If somebody's looking for advice to make that jump, or they're in Pro-Am and they're not sure why they're not getting better. Like, it's what you surround yourself with at that point.
Yeah, I mean, when you go from Pro-Am to Pro 2, it's tough, man. That's a big it's a big performance jump that a lot of people aren't prepared to deal with, for sure.
Yeah, and on so many different levels, like so many different levels, whether it's logistics, finances, vehicle, driver, anything else, but it's interesting. Do you see what Chelsea Denofa commented? Do you follow Formula Derp? I'm assuming you do.
I don't actually, but
no. Wow.
No.
So Formula Derp posted at Irwindale about the Pro 2 guys, and all it said was, if you don't spin out, you win the event. And Chelsea, maybe I should pull it up just so I can quote him correctly, because I think he's the guy that anybody in Pro 2 or Pro-Am one of the guys they should be looking up to, because that's a guy that's done the grind, that's done the struggle, and has moved his way there.
Right.
Let me just find it here 1 sec. So the post by Formula Derp was Pro 2 finals, complete a lap without making a mistake and you'll podium, which that's kind of how things went in Irwindale.
Right.
So Chelsea put, this has always been a thing. If you are a decent driver with a good, reliable car, you can just let the other drivers make mistakes and win a Pro 2 championship. Instead, everyone has to be the fastest dude out there and blows it because the car is too difficult to drive and they make a mistake. So I'm kind of interested to get your take on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think there's some guys that are, I won't say any names, but like there's definitely some guys I've seen that are like what I would call like a subpar driver who have done really well, just from
laying down a consistent lap.
Yeah, like just being able to like run consistent and like, look, like I get Pro 2 is not the most beautiful or impressive sport, but it's not supposed to be. It's the second tier of drifting, and honestly, like, I mean, you can look at that from a negative approach, but I think there are probably a lot of guys who took in a lot of data, learned a lot, and have come to improve. I mean, if you watch, I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people take for granted how pro drifting is compared to like go into YouTube and type in like Formula Drift Irwindale 06.
Oh my God.
And watch that and tell me that that's better than Pro 2 now. It's probably not.
No, I rewatched a battle between Chris Forsberg and Von Gittin, and Von like was literally all over the track trying to follow Chris, and it was in a finals battle.
Yeah, I mean, so you can put that negative energy out there and have that negative take, but to me, I think the reality is like, dude, pro is like, woof, like this Irwindale, like I don't even think there were like people turned up. Like there wasn't even really like a lot of times like top 32 is a little like bit of like a lull. It's a little slow, and then you're like top 16 dudes turned on. Like top 32 from like the first battle was just banging. Like the battles were crazy, and so I don't know. I mean, Denofa probably has a valid point. I think these Pro 2 guys struggle though because you know they want that like pro car, but they don't quite have the crew and the logistics and everything. So
Yeah.
that's part of the challenge I think with Pro 2. You got to find that car. I think like Travis Reeder did a really good job. I mean, even though he had the unfortunate issue of not qualifying at Irwindale, but like if he took that car to pro, it'd be way underpowered.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
I think that's what we saw with, oh my God, why is the Dirk Stratton?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, nothing against him. That car, great car for Pro 2. Just not quite enough under the hood for Pro.
yes, and Matt Van Kirk, you can say the same thing,
Yep.
but those guys were really successful in Pro 2 because they didn't bring pro cars. So
Mm.
I think that's something to consider, right? Like both of them did really, really well. I don't know. You just got to be out there. You got to progress. You got to grow. I don't look at it as Sometimes I have a hard time watching Pro 2 as well, but to me, as long as things are like progressing, the sport's getting more interesting. Like, who cares? It is what it is. And you're also focusing on Irwindale, where I think that was one of the worst Pro 2 rounds. When
Yeah.
if you go back and look at Texas and St. Louis, were pretty sick as far as like Pro 2
Yep.
went from.
Yeah, even Atlanta was fairly good.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'm biased on the Ryan Little Riley Sexsmith battle, but I think anybody watching that was on their feet for that. That was crazy.
it was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
They hit each other like 5 or 6 times, I
I
think.
think yeah Riley I know hit him at least 3 times,
Yeah.
and I think Literal hit Riley once or twice. So and then caught fire. So it was nuts.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, there's flashes of brilliance, moments of greatness that happen for sure. It's I don't know. I like seeing the story of it now, like how well Kelsey Rawlings has progressed over the season. She had a really rough year, but like seeing every once in a while she'll go out and run a lap, and you're like, shit, there it is. That's what you're looking for. Josh Robinson, same thing. There, that dude's got so much weight on his shoulders, being a really good drifter coming out of Australia with one of the most eye-grabbing and attention-seeking cars on the field in either Pro 2, or Pro Am. And
Right.
I mean, everyone expects him to do well. So,
Of course. Yeah.
but
And
that's why I like Pro 2.
yeah, and I think those two examples are great examples too of like I think they're both really good drivers, you know, uh independently,